There is a grave being dug for you, not by the hands of time, but by your own hesitation. And you stand at its edge, peering in, as if death were a spectator sport. Why most men die before they are dead. You ask why the world passes you by, why the fire in your belly flickers but never roars. I will tell you plainly, you are waiting for permission, waiting for the right time, waiting for some divine hand to lift you from the muck of your own making. And while you wait, the rot sets in, not in your bones, but in your will. I have seen men of great promise wither like autumn leaves because they dared not take the step. They stood at the threshold of their own greatness, trembling, as if fear were a virtue and caution a crown. But hear me now, the man who waits for perfect conditions will never act, for life is not a still pond, it is a raging river, and it will drag you under if you do not swim. What is it you fear? Failure? Then you have already failed, for the true failure is never trying. Discomfort? Then you have chosen the slow death of ease over the sharp birth of struggle. The world does not reward those who linger in the shallows. It rewards those who dive into the deep, who fight the current, who gasp for air but keep swimming. You say, I am not ready. Fool, no man is ever ready. Readiness is a myth sold to the weak. Alexander did not wait to conquer the known world. Caesar did not pause at the Rubicon to ponder his qualifications. They acted, and in acting, they became. There is a beast inside you, starving, howling for purpose. Feed it with action, or it will devour you from within. The hour is late, and the grave does not wait. Most men carry a corpse on their backs, the corpse of the man they could have been, and the stench of it follows them to their dying breath. The ghost that walks beside you. You feel it, do you not? That shadow at your elbow, that whisper in the dark. It is the specter of your unlived life, the road not taken, the battle not fought. It does not haunt you with screams, but with silence, the terrible quiet of potential left to wither. I have walked among the living dead, men with strong limbs and hollow eyes, who move through the world like sleepwalkers. They eat, they work, they laugh, but they do not live. For life is not measured in breaths, but in fires kindled, in mountains climbed, in fears faced and conquered. You were not made for comfort. You were made for conquest. The divine spark within you was not placed there to smolder. It was meant to burn. And yet you smother it with excuses, with distractions, with the petty concerns of a life half-lived. Tell me, when you stand before the judgment of your own soul, what will you say? That you were busy? That you were tired? That the world was too cruel, the odds too steep? The grave cares not for your reasons. It takes the brave and the coward alike. The only difference is that one dies with honor and the other with regret. Do not let your epitaph read, "He meant to." Every day you choose, not with words, but with silence, not with action, but with surrender. And the feast you dine upon is not of victory, but of slow decay. Why weak men love chains? You tell yourself you are free. You rise, you labor, you sleep, yet I tell you plainly, you are in chains. Not chains of iron, but of fear, not shackles placed upon you by another, but those you have clasped around your own wrists with trembling hands. What is the nature of these chains? They are the lies you whisper to yourself in the dark. I cannot. It is too late. I am not enough. And with each repetition, the metal grows thicker, the weight more unbearable. You have become like the circus elephant that could snap its tether with ease, but does not because it was conditioned as a calf to believe the rope was unbreakable. The coward's feast is a bitter meal. He gorges himself on excuses, on the sweet poison of someday. He licks the crumbs of half-hearted effort from his fingers and calls it sustenance. But the soul starves, the spirit withers, and when death comes, as it must, he will realize too late that he traded his birthright for a bowl of gruel. There is only one way to break free. Act. Act now. Act boldly. Act as if your life depends on it, because it does. The chains are an illusion. The prison door is unlocked. Walk out. You pray for easy days, but it is the hard ones that shape you. You beg for relief, not realizing the fire is your salvation. Why greatness is born in the crucible. Men flee from suffering as if it were a curse. They numb themselves with drink, with distraction, with the hollow laughter of fools. But I tell you, suffering is the chisel of the divine. It carves away the excess, reveals the form hidden beneath the marble of your weakness. Look to the smith at his forge. Does he spare the iron the hammer's blow? Does he pity the steel as it screams in the flames? He knows what it must endure to become a blade, and so it is with you. Your trials are not your enemy. They are your making. Every loss, every betrayal, every sleepless night, these are not punishments. They are the curriculum of your soul's education. The man who has never been broken cannot be remade. Do not seek the path of least resistance. Seek the one that demands everything, for only there will you find what you are truly made of. The greatest battle is not fought on any field you can see. It rages in the chambers of your own skull, and the enemy wears your face. Conquer thyself. Every morning you wake to an invasion. Doubt storms the gates. Laziness scales the walls. Fear whispers treason from the shadows. And what is your defense? Surrender. You hand over the keys to your kingdom without a fight. But I say unto you, you are the general of this war. You alone choose whether to raise the white flag or sound the charge. Discipline is your sword. Will is your shield. And the territory you fight for is your own soul. Victory does not come in a single glorious moment. It is 1 inch by bloody inch, in the small choices no one sees. The decision to rise when the body begs to sleep, to work when the mind screams for distraction, to stand when every fiber begs to kneel. This is the silent war, and the prize is the man you were meant to be. You were born to scale peaks, yet you spend your days counting pebbles at the base of the hill. Why small men fear heights? The mountain does not care if you climb it. It stands immutable, eternal, indifferent to your fear. The wind howls across its face, whether you're there to hear it or not. And what do? You stare upward, trembling, calculating the cost. You measure the distance, the cold, the danger, and you turn away. You settle for the safety of the valley, for the petty triumphs of flat ground. But the mountain remains, and with each passing year, its shadow grows longer across your shrinking soul. A man was not made to grovel in the dirt. He was made to ascend, to test his lungs against the thin air, to plant his flag where others dared not go. Stop counting the risks. Start counting the reasons why you must try. Time does not stop. It does not pause for your excuses, and the sand is running out. What will you do with your handful of days? You act as if immortality is your birthright, as if there will always be a tomorrow to mend today's cowardice. But the hourglass cares nothing for your delusions. Each grain falls, relentless, and the pile at the bottom grows. What will you say when the last grain drops? That you were going to begin? That you planned to change? The dead do not get second chances. Do not waste another sunset. Do not squander another dawn. The clock is ticking. You chase after trinkets and titles, never realizing the throne you truly hunger for sits empty within your own chest. Why kings die begging men kill for gold. They betray for power. They grovel before false idols, mouths watering for scraps of earthly glory. And when at last they clutch their prize, what then? A hollow victory, a crown that weighs nothing because it is made of air. I have seen conquerors weep in their palaces. I have watched merchants count their coins with dead eyes. The soul knows when it has been cheated. You may trick the world, but you cannot trick that still, small voice that whispers in the watches of the night. Was this all? There is only one kingdom worth ruling, the dominion of your own spirit. Master that, and no earthly defeat can break you. Lose it, and no victory will satisfy. Most men live as if drugged. Eyes open but unseeing, limbs moving but purposeless, hearts beating but never truly alive. How to wake before it's too late. You move through your days in a haze. The alarm sounds, you dress, you labor, you return, all without ever shaking the fog from your mind. This is not living. This is sleep with your eyes open. The tragedy, you could wake at any moment. One conscious breath, one deliberate act of will. That is all it takes to shatter the trance. Yet you choose the dream because reality seems too sharp, too bright, too demanding. But morning always comes. And when it does, when death shakes you by the shoulder, what will you say? I was just about to wake up? The world will forget you sooner than you think, and more completely than you can bear. What will remain when you are gone? You build your little monuments, your name on an office door, your likeness in a social photograph, your trophies on a dusty shelf. Fool, these are sand castles at high tide. In 100 years, who will remember the color of your eyes? In 1,000, what trace will remain that you ever drew breath? This is not despair, it is liberation. When you accept that oblivion comes for all, you are free to labor for what truly matters. Not for fame, but for virtue. Not for memory, but for truth. Leave something behind that cannot rot. Civilization has made you soft, but the embers still glow. Stir them, and you may yet burn bright again. Why modern men are starving? You eat, but are never full. You sleep, but are never rested. You acquire, but are never satisfied. Why? Because you feed the wrong hunger. The belly may be packed with delicacies while the soul starves. Our ancestors knew hunger, real hunger, and thus knew true nourishment. They fought wolves with bare hands. They crossed oceans in wooden tubs. They carved civilizations from wilderness. And you tremble before an unkind word. You falter at minor discomfort. The cure is not more comfort, but worthy struggle. Find your wolf. Build your boat. Carve your mark. When all else is lost, when hope has fled and the night is absolute, there remains one final rebellion. How to die well. They may take your freedom. They may break your body. They may strip you of every earthly possession. But one thing remains yours until the final breath, the choice of how you meet your end. The coward begs, the brave man stands, the fool whimpers about fairness. The sage smiles, knowing death is but a door. Live so that when the reaper comes, he finds you already waiting, boots on, eyes clear, soul at peace. Someday is the sweetest poison. It kills without blood, without struggle, without a single scream to mark its murder. How delay becomes death. You tell yourself the lie all men tell. I shall begin tomorrow. But tomorrow is a thief, a cheat, a silver-tongued devil that steals your years while you nod in agreement. I have walked through the graveyards of 1,000 tomorrows, each headstone carved with the same epitaph. Here lies what might have been. The disease is this. You believe time is your ally. You count the grains of sand yet to fall and think them infinite. But the hourglass cares nothing for your arithmetic. The sand falls whether you watch or not. There is no tomorrow. There is only now. This breath, this heartbeat, this moment slipping through your fingers even as you read these words. The man who chains his dreams to someday is a slave dragging his shackles through the years. Break the chains. Act today. Or kneel at your own grave and explain to the worms why you waited. The world is full of men who are nothing but echoes, their laughter borrowed, their passions second-hand, their very souls a cheap imitation of life. Why most men are already ghosts. They walk among us, these hollow men. You see them in taverns, braying with laughter they do not feel. You meet them in parlors, nodding at opinions not their own. They are empty suits of flesh, stuffed with newspaper clippings of other men's thoughts. How does a man become a ghost before he dies? One compromise at a time, one surrender, one silent betrayal of his own soul. The process is slow, painless, like freezing to death in snow. First comes numbness, then sleep, then the long night. There's only one antidote: to think your own thoughts, to fight your own battles, to bleed your own blood upon the earth. Better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you are not. Every great man carries a tempest in his chest, not to destroy him, but to cleanse the world of his weakness. Why you must not fear your own fury. You have felt it. That dark tide rising in your gut when injustice rears its head. That fire in your veins when laziness whispers surrender. And what do? You drown it in drink. You smother it with platitudes. You kneel before priests who call your rage a sin. But I tell you, the storm is holy. That fury is the forge fire of your soul. The world wants you tame, broken, yoked like an ox to the plow of mediocrity. It fears what you might become if you ever let the thunder speak. Do not mistake calmness for virtue. There are things in this world worth raging against, starting with the coward in your mirror. Every man comes at last to the final crossing, where the path behind cannot be retraced and the path ahead must be walked alone. What will you carry across? You spend your days accumulating wealth, friends, reputation. But when you stand at the last bridge, and stand there you will, none of these may cross with you. The coins fall through your fingers. The voices fade. The titles turn to dust. Only 3 things can accompany you into that final night. The love you gave without calculation. The truth you spoke without fear, the scars you earned in worthy battle, all else is dross. Build accordingly. God does not create finished men. He creates raw material and leaves the chisel in our hands. Why you must carve yourself, you wait to be taught. You beg to be led. You whimper for some savior to complete the work you fear to begin. But the angels do not descend with golden tools. The only instruments are your own 2 hands, bloodied, trembling, but yours. I have seen statues half emerged from marble, faces blurred, limbs still trapped in stone. These are the men who stopped chiseling, who feared the pain of becoming, who preferred the safe ambiguity of potential to the terrifying clarity of form. The masterpiece exists already within the block. Your only task is to remove what does not belong. Beware the old man who has kept his teeth, for while others grew soft, he has been sharpening his fangs. Why, age is no excuse. You blame your gray hairs for your weakness. You point to your years as reason for retreat. Fool, the winter of life was never meant for hibernation. It is the season when true strength is revealed. The young lion relies on speed, the middle-aged on strategy. But the old lion knows every trick, every weakness, every shortcut to the jugular. He moves slower, but strikes wiser. His roar carries the weight of decades. Your body may soften, but your will need not. The fire depends not on the hearth, but on the fuel you feed it. One day, you will close this book for the last time. And the question is not whether you read well, but whether you lived what you read. Now it begins enough words, enough warnings, enough sermons carved from ink and rage. If these pages have not yet stirred you, no further syllables will. The hour has come to shut this volume and open your eyes to the world that waits, not in parchment, but in blood and sweat and deeds. I leave you with this final truth. Wisdom unused is wisdom wasted. Fire untended becomes ash. A call unanswered is the greatest sin of all. Go.